Welcome back, Source Nation. You're listening live to Family Mix Mondays with your host, Jaketra Bryant.
Welcome back, Source Nation. Again, I am your host, Jaketra Bryant. And as stated before, we have Maya Cullins in the studio tonight to begin our series of bridging the gap between our parents and our teens. But before she comes in, let me tell you a little bit about her. So Maya Cullins is a dedicated wife, mother, born and raised in North Carolina. Maya is the COO of Changing Phases Behavioral Support, a professional organization that is known for providing mental health and substance abuse services since February of 2006. Maya is a serial entrepreneur who wears many hats, as she is also an author, motivational speaker, TV film producer, all while managing her own practice. She is proof that women can run businesses and still have an amazing family life. Maya spearheads her signature programming at the state of Georgia called M&K, Divas in Training Youth Enrichment Program. This program exposes middle school at-risk females to various opportunities and experiences to encourage them to change their thinking and search within themselves. So I do believe we have Maya in the studio with us.
Well, hello, Maya, and thank you so much for joining me on Family Mix Mondays. Hello. So why don't you go ahead and tell Source Nation a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Oh, gosh, I got a lot to tell you. So I do a little bit of everything. I have a mental health and substance abuse agency here in Atlanta, Georgia. I have an opioid treatment program as well, where we work with individuals that's obviously addicted to opioids. I actually just released a book. I'm relaunching one of my books, actually both of my books, which is called In My Father's House and Behind the Veil. So I have two books that's out. So I'm an author, entrepreneur that's within the mental health and substance abuse realm, and I will be picking up some writing blogs and different things about topics that's dealing with family, marriages, mental health struggles in various communities. So I'm going to try to be very, very specific to a particular topic that addresses a need that we have so often seen in the community to help individuals that are going through, similar issues or some of the same issues, and kind of go in depth in reference to what it is that they can do to assist them to be successful and be able to function in life without having the cares of the world on their shoulders and feeling like they're alone. So I have a little bit of everything going on right now, but I'm excited.
Yes. Congratulations on the books first. And love what you do, and I can definitely see how you are definitely about to be an asset to tonight's topic, where we're talking about bridging the gap between parents and our teens. Not only will you know something in the mental health area, but as a parent, so I am sure this is definitely going to be a really great discussion tonight.
Most definitely.
Yes. So Source Nation, if you are just tuning in, you're listening to Family Mix Mondays, and I'm your host, Jaketra Bryant. And tonight my special guest is Maya Cullins, and we are kicking off our series of bridging the gap between parents and our teenagers. So the phone lines are open, and if you would like to ask Maya a question or myself a question, the number to dial in is 619-924-0933 and press option 1. Again, that is 619-924-0933 and press option 1. So Maya, you and I are definitely going to get started on our conversation.
Okay.
So great. So communication with our youth can be both challenging and scary. We know that from just experience and as parents ourselves. So what do you see are some factors that cause parents to not communicate effectively and have that healthy relationship with their teens?
Well, I think some of the things that I've seen is a lot of times parents don't want to accept the new millennium and the generation that is coming up in the way they are functioning, the way they are thinking, the way they are doing things. And I often see, not even on the professional side of business of what I do, but personally, I see where the parents have to sometimes take a back seat and allow their children, teach them the things that they need to know to be successful, and then allow them to be able to demonstrate it. Because what you don't want, or what I see where parents will say, well, no, I keep telling them, I keep calling them, and he's not listening, so I'm going to keep staying on him. And that's not always the case. And even if that is the case for the parent, that's not always healthy, for our children and for the teens and individuals, children that's out there struggling when it's trying, with the communication between them and their parents. So I think that's one of the main things is, as parents, we want them to be the best, of course. We love on our children, of course, but we can't dictate every single move that they make. We have to entrust that what we're instilling in them, that they're going to take it and run with it and be the best that they can be, even though they may make some mistakes. But, that's life. And I know it's kind of hard to accept that when it's your baby, when it's your child, but the truth of the matter is nothing that you can do about it besides make it worse if you try to be overbearing when it comes to our children.
That's a really, really good point. I always call that like needing to cut the umbilical cord. So you have like all these parents who are like, well, I got to be over here. I got to help them register for this class. I got to like make sure they're picked up from school in this time. I got to pick them up, drop them off, be home at this time. And so where it looks like we're just being protective through society, I'm with you.
Right.
That can be viewed as a factor as to what's breaking the relationship, especially for our teenagers.
Yes. And I have, my oldest is 17, and he'll say, Mama, you can't protect me from the world. I am a boy. And, when he's on his dirt bike, I say, Nigel, don't fall. Make sure you put on your helmet. Make sure. And he'll look at me like, Mama, I'm okay. But, a mother instinct is to protect, and even a father, to love and to nurture our babies. But I feel that in today's society, if we can all stand together and say, hey, it doesn't come with a manual book on how to be a parent. But one thing that we do know is that if we teach them good morals and values and we instill that in them through it can be traditional things that you do within your family, whether they're family gatherings or praying together at the dinner table, which is very essential that I've found, because we got away from that with all the technology and the gadgets. A lot of families don't have that time to sit and to talk at the dinner table and talk to their kids and see how things are going. So I think if you look at the overall picture of what it is that's going on with your child and really truly understand them for what they are and not try to change them, then I think the relationship can also grow in that aspect as well.
Mm-hmm. I love what you said, and I agree wholeheartedly, especially with like the technology. I was a guilty parent myself, and I literally had to set this ground rule that I will no longer scroll Facebook or scroll Instagram during dinner. And so I would always, I've been very consistent with sitting down with dinner for my son, but now was I very attentive? No. And so I had to realize that, man, I am modeling that it's okay to tap out mentally from dinner, but be physically present.
Oh, yeah.
And that breaks our relationship.
Most definitely. I agree with you.
And so I noticed that you also work with providing like mental health and substance abuse services for the community. So do you believe these factors, this factors into the generational cycle that plays a role into our broken communication and that relationship between our parents and teens?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Because you lose the connection. You lose that emotional connection. You lose all of that, gadgets and having those devices that's in your face. It's almost like if you ever take, when I go out to eat, I always tell my husband to look around. And if you just sit and watch how families can be sitting at the table and not one word is shared amongst the family the whole entire time that they're eating because they're in their phone. And that's where, like, when it comes to the communication and understanding your child and knowing what's going on and, your child being bullied at school and increase the suicidal rates that you see, especially here in Georgia alone, that is one of the leading causes because that connection is not there. The child does not feel that they can go to their parents. And as parents, we have to always be mindful to allow that door to be open and have that balance so that that communication is there to prevent some of those things from happening when it comes to our children and the kids as a whole in the community. Because They all need it, whether they believe it or feel it or not. They all need that touch. They all need that communication. And you and I both know in any relationship, if there's no communication, that relationship, you pretty much don't have a relationship if the communication is not there. Because how can you interact and know that person? You know? So that's the same with our kids. Even though, you know, we're grown and we're older and we're parents and we feel like, well, you know, let me just take this call or let me just get on this and send this last email. You know, it may, you know, look from the perspective of when you have that time, don't take it for granted. Cherish every moment because our kids grow so fast.
I agree. I think like we do. I think like the hardest part is when it comes to the teenagers, it's actually trying to. I think what a lot of mistakes we make is we're immediately on the don't do this, or I don't want you to make the same mistakes I made, and which in essence it sounds like that's very harmless. But what happens is sometimes we forget that where we were developmentally at that stage, and I think we focus on the other stuff like the sex, or focus on the teen pregnancies, or focus on these games more so than like how we really were becoming more distant from our parents, but yet yearning the structure and still wanting them to still come ask us in spite of. And so I think sometimes for parents, that whole don't do this, don't do that really breaks that relationship up more so than they think. So.
Right. And I agree. And I think it's more so not what you say as a parent, it's how you say it and how you go about doing it. Because at the end of the day, you can deliver the same message and say, hey, Johnny, don't go out there tonight. You know, I don't feel comfortable with you going up. Now, if you decide that you want to go a little later, just let me know and kind of have that relationship. And I will let me kind of channel a little bit towards, like, the African-American community. I had a conversation with my son, and he said, Mom, it's so hard for me not to have anger. And when he called me this past week and said, Mama, come to the store down the street. I'm down here with my friends, and 3 cops pulled up. And my heart literally sank to my stomach. And I know I taught my son what to do, you know, the do's and don'ts, and how to be mindful. So when I get there, it was basically the cops asking them why was they there. They looked suspicious. And my son was very agitated because he said, Mama, you know, I'm not doing anything wrong, and I'm still, it seems like it doesn't matter. And, you know, being an African-American male and being a teenager, I feel like I'm always going to be targeted. So now our conversations does not need to be just a general conversation and just how you doing. Now it needs to be educating our kids so that communication is very essential. Now it needs to be, you know, son or daughter, this is some things that you have to be mindful of. These places when you go, try not to be like, you know, the things that we didn't possibly have to necessarily worry about when we were younger. We have to put on a different lens. And that's why with this whole topic with communication and talking with your children and parenting is very, very essential, because now you have to think on a whole nother level just so that you can see your son come home at night or your daughter come home at night. Mm-hmm. So the conversation is so much deeper than what meets the eye and what people see. And, you know, in reference to just conversation and connecting, you have to truly connect to your child, love on your child. And that's why it draws back to what I said earlier about not taking it for granted. Put down that phone, listen to your child. How did your day go? And, you know, my kids will say, Mama, you ask me how my day go every day. It's the same as yesterday. But as long as I know that I've asked you and I know that your day is going well, then it does all the justice for me. At least I have that open line of communication that if something should change day by day, that I will be in the loop and I will know it and I won't miss it.
Mm-hmm. So. That's important. I agree. And that's definitely unfortunate about your son, but too much of the reality. And so I think a lot of the times we focus on a lot of the negative points of like, oh, this is what's happening to this community that we miss. Like, there is some part in it that we can play when it comes to the solutions. We can actually find out a little bit more about our teams and what they are, what they're doing, and who they're hanging around with and what's going on, and talking to them about the preventative measures. So your son knew exactly how to take the steps by, hey, let me get an adult involved. Let me get my mom involved so that she can actually handle this situation for me and step in. So I felt safe and comfortable enough to do so. And so I wonder how many other young men call their parents.
Yeah. And it was 4 of them, so he was the only one that actually called. But, you know,
right.
I was glad because you know how we often talk to our kids and we think they don't listen. And I always tell my husband, I said, you know, when, it was just Nigel and I didn't have my other kids, I said, I used to say, gosh, I could be reading him a book and he doesn't listen at all. But if I give him the book and say, okay, Nigel, when he was younger, read it back to me, he could read the book back to me. And so that's a prime example that you don't necessarily have to have his eyes on you or your child's attention. If you are speaking into their life and pouring into their life every day, encouraging them, giving them positive feedback, teaching them, they're going to retain some of that stuff. And when they retain it, they're going to know when to apply it. And the situation with the police, coming up and saying that they look suspicious was a prime example. He knew if I handle it in my own hands, then I don't know what's going to be the outcome. So let me call my mama and tell her this is going on in my location, and let me do the talking as a parent when I show up. So I think that and then you have to have that communication where your child trusts you enough to call. You don't want to have that phone call where your child calls you and you say, what are you doing? What happened? What's wrong? Why did you always getting in trouble? Even if that is the case, we have to understand how to even articulate our words and talk to them in a manner where they feel inviting to come to us to talk, So I think that's also a good thing to kind of keep in the back of your mind when you are communicating and dealing with your children.
I agree. Keeping that line of communication open. So, Source Nation, if you're just tuning in, this is Family Mix Mondays with your host, Jaketra Bryant, and you are listening to Maya Cullins, and she is shining so much light on us with bridging this gap between our parents and our teenagers. And so if you would like to ask Maya a question, the number to call is 619-924-0933 and press option 1.
Yes.
So Maya, I was wondering about some factors when it comes to a person having mental health or a person having substance abuse, and they might not have had that relationship with their teenagers or children at that time because of maybe mental illness or because of maybe taken away with defects with substance abuse related. So
right.
What do you think they can actually do to bridge that gap between themselves and the children?
What can the parents do in particular?
Well, yes, those parents who have maybe lost custody and now are getting it back because of treatment, maybe have substance abuse concerns and are able now to get their children back and they want to repair that relationship.
Right. My suggestion would be for one to stay in counseling. I know it sounds so cliche, but really the truth of the matter is if counseling can be so beneficial, and not because I'm a provider and I offer that service, because even if I didn't, I think counseling will be just phenomenal because it can make such a dynamic change when you are seeking professional help. For you as the individual that may have been in a situation where you lost your children. In addition to that, I encourage family counseling so that way you can also talk on an individual basis with your therapist and also talk on a basis where you can talk as a family and be open to change. Be open to those conversations that as a parent, if you were struggling with substance abuse, don't be afraid of who you are. Don't be afraid of what has happened. I think one of the things that I often find when individuals say, well, I don't want to tell him the truth. I don't want to tell him or her that I was struggling with cocaine. I don't want to tell my child that I couldn't provide, but it's either you tell them or they're going to have resentment because they're going to have all those questions in their mind and their head from what they perceived it to be, and then you're dealing with a whole nother animal. So I think counseling would be one of the biggest things, and be honest and open, depending on the child's age, with what actually took place and what happened that led to that point.
Yep, I agree. I think transparency helps. And I know a lot of people are like, well, I can't have these real conversations with my children because they might know that mama was doing this or daddy was doing this back in the day. But I think the way technology has moved and the way social media exposes our children and the way just society is just growing them up at such a different space. Like, I've always had the motto in my home, I'm going to tell you before the streets tell you. And that goes for whatever is hidden in my closet that I have now grown from and was seeking help along the way for. I'm going to be transparent about it, but I would definitely deliver it developmentally, appropriately.
Right. I agree. And you got to understand, a lot of times it's generational things that happen in families. And, for example, if a parent dealt with that, I can guarantee you more than likely that wasn't just something that just happened to their parents. It's a generational thing that sometimes often happens. And it goes unspoken, so what it generally does is seeps to the children. And then the children begin to deal with a lot of those issues. So somebody has to stop passing the buck. So depending on the age of the child, I think it's very important to speak to them. And just like you said, you may have parents that don't feel comfortable, like, well, I don't know. And, I don't feel, well, if you don't, then guess what? Get a therapist or get somebody that's licensed and specialized in the issues that you are having. Maybe a sponsor or whoever you had throughout your treatment to basically help you get back around to even have your kids. Have them assist you with delivering the message to their kids, or talk to your children, or talk with them, if that makes sense. Talk with them one-on-one, or I don't know how you can do it, but that would be my greatest or my suggestion with discussing it with whoever the person is, if they're in the equation, to assist you with the delivery of it. If you don't know, it's always hotlines, there's always numbers that you can call and talk to clinicians and professionals in general that can make a tremendous impact. You may have a family member that had experienced the same type of situation that other parent experienced and dealt with their kids, and in return, you can have somebody. I always say some individual's greatest testimony is the experience of life or what they went through, because you don't look at it as a downfall to what has happened. You look at it as a lesson learned. And in life, it doesn't matter what type of issues that you have. I always tell individuals that are struggling with addiction, and this is in reference to the kids as well. At the end of the day, we all struggle with something. When you sin, no one sin is no different than the next. So nobody is better than the next person. But the moral of it all is to learn the lesson so that you can be a blessing to someone else that's in that same situation. Stop taking it. Don't make it about you. Just focus on the situation and be able to reach your children, basically bridging that gap between you and your child or your children to assist them with being better with you and you coming back into their life if defects was involved, or just being open with your family. Like, you can touch so many people through the situation, so you can, not only just your kids, a lot of other individuals can be impacted by it. So that would be my suggestion.
Yep, a great one. I love it. And so I definitely didn't want to leave those parents out, because I know I myself, being in the field of mental health and just the psychological services, I too know that I've seen defects and I've seen mental health issues break those relationships apart. But you really do have a lot of people who still yearn for that relationship. So I definitely wanted to make sure you touched on that, just so that we can also, those parents that are really wanting that relationship back, but they got some skeletons in the closet. They weren't always there. It's been years and years of absence, but there's still this desire to be present and to really break that cycle. And I'm glad you did definitely touch on generational cycles, because that is something that I think we are just so bound by within African American families, within just us as a body of people. And we really have to pay attention to the cycles that are continuously going, and what we need to do to actually break those.
Most definitely. I encourage anyone that struggles when it comes to communication, when it comes to being honest and open, because the only way that we can grow as people, as a culture, as individuals, it doesn't matter what color you are, it doesn't matter what background you come from, but at the end of the day, you have to be able to be willing to take the first step to say, hey, I struggle with, or I had an issue with. but now I am. And whatever you are, speak it. And I always encourage people when they say, well, I'm great, but I think I could be greater. No, I am greater. I am great. I am perfect. Like, you got to be mindful of what you speak, because the things that you speak is ultimately is in your conscious mind and subconscious mind, unconscious mind, and you'll be able to say, okay, I'm going to be this great person, or I am this great person. What you speak is what you are. And when you even deliver the message to your children and say, I was once an addict, but I'm no longer struggling with X, Y, and Z. I've seen that road. I apologize. Just be honest, open, real. And I think that's the most genuine or most passionate or most vulnerable place that you could ever be, when you just pour out your heart and just be honest and open. A lot of the downfalls, to flip it on the opposite side, when I see parents say, well, yeah, that happened, but they should get over it. Yeah, that happened, but they shouldn't be still worrying about that. Everybody heals different. Everybody responds different. So you got to allow everybody to take their step towards recovery or take their step towards forgiveness in their own manner. So I don't want to leave that out, because that is very, very vital when it comes to communication and rebuilding relationships that has been once broken.
Yep, I'm glad you said that, and definitely encouraging them to have that therapy process themselves, and involving that person who specializes in interpersonal relationships and just rebuilding it is going to be that key point. And so I want to shift a little bit slightly, but still on the topic of bridging the gap between our parents and our teens. I want to talk about like your M&K Divas and Training Youth Enrichment Program. And so I want to hear about like some strategies that you have used to bridge that gap between the parents and the teens.
Well, with that program, is a fairly new program that my daughter and I are doing here in Atlanta, Georgia. And it just consists of young girls that's in middle and high school. And generally what we're working on is self-esteem, adequate. We work on a lot of different things that girls ultimately struggle with. Self-esteem, I know that is one of the major ones. Peer pressure, bullying, and then in return, we talk about character building and leadership. And we push that with the hope to eventually start bringing the parents and the mothers in to the program to be able to really allow it to flourish like it needs to. But the first step we are targeting right now is dealing strictly with the young teens, the young girls that's within the group or within the program. So that is the second component with the parents coming on with it, because a lot of times I have seen where parents, yeah, it's a good program for my daughter, but that's for her. And they don't really buy into it personally for themselves. But we are working on now building and formulating a curriculum that involves the parents or the mothers to be more involved collectively with their daughter. So as their daughter grows, the mother grows, or the father grows, whoever that individual is that's a part of that teen's life.
That's going to be awesome. I can't wait to just hear more about it. And I can see the necessity of it. When we often send our children, I too have been very guilty with my little son. I'll send him to a program and I'll give him a mentor. And so I have to be very mindful of my role that I actually play in it, to be very attentive, to know that like that's only a piece of it. There's still another part that I need to make sure I'm present for. There's still a role I need to do in effortlessly communicating and actually getting to know him myself as I'm sending someone else to get to know him.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. But, it's all a process. It doesn't happen overnight. So the program M&K, it's a program that's a growing progress, because we have to personalize and specialize. And we specialize, obviously, working with that. Working with that population. And now I'm teaching my daughter, and she's beyond excited. And I think what helps out the program is because I can get her direct feedback. I can get her ideas. I can get her struggles. So not only do I grow within the program and help the young ladies, I grow with the bonding with my daughter, because I'm able to hear her. I'm able to not only just meet her where she's at, but meet other young ladies where they're at, with hopes to continue to encourage the parents to play that part as well.
Mm-hmm. I think that's going to be a really excellent program. So with some of, what have been some of the challenges that you face with just trying to connect this bridge between parents and teenagers within birthing your program, within your experience, just trying to make that connection. What challenges are usually pretty common?
I think the challenge that I'm finding is the parents being committed to buying into the program. They generally buy into the program for their daughters, but not necessarily themselves. I think that is the biggest challenge out of them all. Then the times, well, what time is it going to be? How long is it going to last? Can I leave her and come back? And then the communication even between the parents and the volunteers and people that help and assist with building this program is a barrier. So I think that's one of the things. If I could say anything and pick one thing, it's the parents. It's the parents buying into it, into the program. I think that is the biggest thing. And if I
and so that's it. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
excuse me. Go ahead.
No, I was saying that if I can get the parents to truly buy into the program and understand the significance and the importance of it, despite of the fact that their daughters are making a significant progress, then I think the program can truly, truly flourish. So this summer, my daughter and I are working on some things that we're going to implement, and next year in 2018, we're going to kick it off. We're going to have shirts. We're going to have workshops. We're going to have field trips. We're going to have a lot of different things that we want to bring to the table. So we're encouraging now any individuals that's in the community that is able to be some type of asset to the program, whether you're a hairstylist, a makeup artist, community relations individual. It doesn't matter what you do. I just want individuals also in the community to say, hey, I'm going to give my time. That will also assist with helping the program, because a lot of the individuals that's in it, the young ladies, they aspire to be an actor. They aspire to do film. They aspire to dance. They aspire to be all these different great things that we see so many women be in the community as a whole, that if we just have one person just planting that seed and say, hey, this is me, this is my story, and you could be X, Y, whatever it is. I think that would be also phenomenal. So we are working on restructuring it and kicking that off next summer. We want at least to allow this summer and the remaining of this particular year to be our year of planning. So this year is pretty much a planning year, and next year we're going to be relaunching it.
Mm-hmm. I know this would definitely be a success, because I'm a strong believer that whatever you plant or pour the seed in that is for the community to uplift definitely will prosper. So I'm a strong believer when it's working for the favor of others, then we're going to always get our pushbacks and things like that, but definitely I can see purpose.
Mhm.
Definitely. And so I was thinking, when you were talking about like the challenges of just getting the parents' participation, I thought more about how there's always a blame. Like, well, he's never talking to me. My daughter is always on her phone. She's always doing this. And so there's always, within just community period or families period, there's always like a blame towards somebody as the reason why people believe the relationship isn't going as smoothly, or you can't talk to our teens. And so I was wondering if you had experience with just kind of seeing just this pointing the finger type of thing.
Oh, yeah. And I think it's a learned behavior. I think it's something that parents can be so accustomed to. And to be honest, I'm guilty, because I say, well, my son knows, my daughter knows, but they obviously is something missing. So I think it's the parent, the adult, taking responsibility of what it's not, and saying, okay, I see that this is not working. What can I do differently? And I think that's the hardest thing, especially when you have adults that's stubborn and they are like gun-ho to what they feel, and they won't let it go. So that can be a struggle, most definitely.
Mm-hmm. I agree. So hence why we have this segment about bridging the gap between our parents and our teens, because there's still a lot missing, and I think we all have a role in it. I think the teens have to put some effort to it, but we also have to lay the platform for them to feel comfortable enough and for this to be a norm to them. Not to be like, well, why is she asking how my day going? She hasn't asked all year.
Make it a routine, make it a cycle. I always suggest, and I give suggestions to my clients, even when I step in to assist with doing interventions with the clients that receive services as far as the teens. I do an activity that's called, it's my ice cream activity. And, you know, learn your child, learn the individual that you're working with. And one of the things that I do, in order for them to get a scoop of ice cream, they have to tell me what are some things that they struggle with. Like, we can have different topics, but one in particular is what do they struggle with. And they say, well, I don't struggle with anything. Well, tell me one thing that you feel that I'm not doing enough of as a parent. And in order for them to get, especially with smaller kids, in order for them to get a scoop of ice cream, they have to tell you. And they may say, I find where they say, well, I'm angry at you because you don't listen to me. So they get a scoop of ice cream. And then your response is, well, what is it that I don't listen? Then, just listen to use this time to listen and really think and allow your child to really dig in. And granted, a lot of parents will say, Maya, I wouldn't know how to do this at home because that's not my field and I don't understand none of this. So you can get something as simple as not even necessarily ice cream with them taking a scoop and them talking and, you understanding. You could just do dinner at the table and say, hey, how was your day? How is things going? What can I do to help you out? If they say, well, Mama, I'm struggling with my homework. Well, what do you think about getting a tutor? I think maybe we can find a tutor that can possibly come in and help and help. Well, that would be a good idea. And whether they feel like it's a good idea or not, if you hear what their problem is as a parent, make it where you hear what the problem is and find a solution. So here's the problem. Find a solution.
That's really good. I'm sorry to interrupt you. That's really good. I love that one. I love the ice cream one. And so I can't help but when you're talking just to have my wheels going back and reflecting back on my parents. And so I think also allowing yourself to be humble in this process. And I think it's always a great thing to stay growing. And that's not just in age and size, but growing in accountability, growing in just like the maturity part of I still can learn too.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. I agree. Because when you stop learning, then I'm assuming that's going to be the time that you closing your eyes and you 6 feet under. Because of life, you are always in life. You never know.
Right.
Because life. So, and in my mind, it's like, when you're learning and it's challenges that come, I always tell my kids, don't focus on what happens to you. Make sure that your response control what happens. Meaning that anything in life can come to you as a child, as an adult, as a parent, but you have to take what that is and say, okay, this is how I'm going to respond. Instead of me attacking my child, attacking whoever or whatever is going on, I'm going to respond a little different. So I understand that you did bad at school today and that you fussed at the teacher. Now I want you to tell me, what is it that you feel that you could have done different? How could you help that situation? So how you respond as a parent can be a great deal with your child, knowing, hey, I hear what you're saying. I see what, you're asking me. Now you're forcing them to think. So quite naturally, if you constantly forcing them to think, but doing it on a level where it's not so, nagging and aggressive, then guess what in return you're going to get? Now you're going to make them think. So when something happens again, that same response that they told you that they could have did different, they'll start applying it. So it becomes a domino effect. So it's so that we could talk about when it goes into parenting and teens and bridging that gap, because the sky is literally the limit of what can be done. There's no limitation in what can be done. So, like I mentioned to you about the ice cream, you may have kids that like pizza, and, you may want to take them to a pizza place that has like pie in the sky, like the biggest pizzas that you can ever, slice of pizza you can ever find. And because they have that big piece of pizza, make it symbolic to something that's happening in your child's life or possibly happening in their life, and say, tell me what is going on is just as big as this pizza that you struggle with, whether it's homework, whether it's relationship with your friends, whatever it is. And they may think it's funny, but because you're not tying into like, well, Mom, I'm not even thinking about that. I'm thinking about eating a pizza. But you're forcing them to think. And the whole goal is to instill and empower and bridge that gap between our children. If we don't, we're going to lose them. So we definitely have to start somewhere, even if it doesn't seem to be the norm of talking with our children about things like that or using different symbolic items to talk to our children. But you got to understand, if you take them back to grade school, they saw pictures of the sky and they saw that the sky was blue. So they always tie things to different things. The grass is green. The sun is, so use that same analogy, but from a different approach with your children. And I think this is why I strongly, strongly believe in parents going to like parenting classes, because this knowledge that I'm giving and information that I'm talking about could be so vital, and the parents can get so much more if they stay plugged in with the right information and with the right people to help them be a better parent to their children, and their children being involved. That goes back to the M&K divas, but the children being involved and the parents knowing how to respond, so they quite naturally would be more involved as well to a certain degree, So everything happens for a reason, not just because. So we got to look at the big picture when it comes to bridging the gap and that communication between our children.
I agree. And so I want to make sure that we talk about, like, just how you built this solid relationship that you now have with your young daughter, who will definitely be on our show of another series, in the same series, where we'll be hearing from her. But I know that y'all have built a solid relationship so much that she now is working side by side with you. Yes. And so I want to talk about how that trust was built, how that communication became solid, all for y'all to even start working together.
Right. Well, Kayla, she's 13, and I will tell you, as with her being the smallest little thing in this world, I always told her that she's beautiful. She's going to be powerful one day. She's going to be better than me. She's going to be better than Oprah. Like I use people that are, in her mind, is just the greatest. And I use that to show her how she can be great. One of the things that I've done as a mother when it comes to my daughter is be a great role model. So what I mean by that, I always talk to her and I say, Kayla, I got an idea. And I literally tell her, I'm gonna one day have my own TV show. I'm gonna, write books, and I'm gonna make sure that the books have purpose and have meaning. I'm gonna do photo shoots. Like, I just lay it out there. And I say, well, Kayla, what is it that you want to do? So now I'm changing her way of thinking. So now she's saying, at the age of 13, well, Mama, I want to be able to be an entrepreneur. I want to be able to hire people so that they can have money in their pockets to feed their kids and have shelter over their head. Mama, I want to start my own makeup line. So now her ideas is no longer impossible, because I built that relationship even as a small, with her being a small little girl. And I will say to the parents, even if they don't start that small, it's never too late. It's never too late. So if you have parents saying, well, I didn't start that small, so it's probably a lost cause now. No, it's not. No, it's not. Bring that child back in. And one thing I always say to my daughter, I have talks when she could be brushing my hair. She could be in the bathroom putting on makeup, because she watches YouTube all the time, and she makes lipsticks and hair bows, and she's very creative. And what I do is capitalize on her gift, meaning that I put her in situations where she can see that her gift is possible, if that makes sense. Meaning that if she feels like, well, Mama, I can own my own, I can deal with people. So I put her in situations where she's interacting with people, where she's helping with selling my book. She's in the office where I'm actually working in the environment of working with individuals that work around me. So she sees how I interact, how I talk, how I treat people, and in return, she takes all of that in. And now she wants to be just everything. But, I started when she was really, really small, to be honest. I started when she was small, and then even as today, I grow with it. And then I get to those conversations that I don't want to talk about the boys and leaving those little nasty little boys alone when you're 13 and 14 to focus on school. So I have those conversations with her too. You know, I give her scenarios, not that an individual her age or teen pregnancy is an issue, which, you know, quite naturally a lot of people have their own perspective and judgment on it, but I tell her, you know, of course you can be successful. I had my first as a teen. I was a teen mother, and, you know, I saw it from the world of people saying or looking at me being another statistic. And they never imagined that I would have my bachelor's degree, my master's degree, and now working on my doctoral degree, or having a business that's a multi-million-dollar business. And, you know, they would never imagine. So I always tell her that life is what it is. People will dictate who you are and what you are supposed to be in life, but at the end of the day, you have to believe differently. And do not allow people around you to speak for you, to think for you, and tell you what you are. So those conversations I have with her, and I think my life experience that goes back to the conversation we had earlier where parents were addicted to different things and they lost their kids and they got it back. I was honest with things that has happened in my life to show my daughter the growth and the possibilities. And yes, granted, I always tell her, I said, it doesn't matter where you started, it matters where you finish. So always to parents, it doesn't matter when you start doing it or when you start it. What matters is when you actually finish the race, so that when everything is said and done, you would have left a legacy. And often people think a legacy is with their children, but the legacy is when you change one person, because that one person going to change somebody else. So legacy can be so much deeper and greater, and it starts from one with in-house with my daughter. And because I think like that and I believe that, that's where the relationship starts. So it's nothing that my daughter cannot come and say, I want to be, I think I can be. And we don't use that maybe, can, should have, could have. We use that I will be. So whatever you say you are, you will be. It's just a matter of time.
That is awesome. That motivates me. I have a young son, and I need to make sure that I continue it. I remember I started when he would wake up in the morning, I would say, good morning, Christian. Mommy loves you and God loves you too. And you're such an awesome leader. And that brain is just going today. And I just used to pretend, like, he's like, nah, just pretend that I'm seeing all kind of this electricity off his brain and just getting him amped up about you're a leader and you're going to be such a great person. And you decide, like, about this day. And so it just motivates me to continue with even more stuff pouring into my young son who looks more so at the celebrities in football and basketball, but that's very motivational. And so I'm glad that's a great way for us to wrap this conversation up with really just that great advice from them and just continue pouring into them. And so I don't want to leave without Source Nation family. Just any last words of encouragement you have. How can they maybe get their daughters involved in your training enrichment program, or just get in touch with you for services?
Well, the name of my organization is Changing Phases Behavior Support, and that's Changing Phases, PHASES, Behavioral Support. You can find me on Facebook at Maya Cullins, which is MYACULLINS. My website, I have a website, and my website is MayaSpellerCullins.com, and it's MYA. And speller is kind of like spelling bee, but it's speller. So it's MYASPELLER, Cullins, CULLINS.com. So you can reach out to me by looking me up on my website, following me on Facebook, or looking at my organization name, Changing Phases Behavioral Support. I'm so excited because I do believe that the listeners that are listening on today, that we have said something collectively that can bless them and can help them in their life with their children and bridging that gap. I have been that parent that has experienced and worked with, for one, being a teen mother and still being great and building a foundation that not only can I stand on, but my kids can stand on. I have been that mother and still is that mother that I have my youngest child that has ADHD and was overwhelmed and frustrated because I said, Lord, you allowed me to be able to deal with my son, but, I deal with it at work all the time. I didn't think I was going to have to, apply it when I come home. But I want the listeners to understand that everything in life is connected, and it all happens for a reason. And God only places on us the great things that he knows that we can handle, and he would never place more than we can bear. So regardless of your situation, look at the positive of it, and look at it from the perspective of what you can do as a parent to be great, to be different, and to be just like ridiculous blessings that you can just pour and you can give to your kids. Understand that your life story, your struggles, whether it's ups and downs, your frustration, it doesn't define your tomorrow. Each day is a new day, and a new day to be a blessing to your child. And not only to your child, quite naturally, the ripple, it will come right back to you. It'll be a blessing to yourself. So don't give up, don't lose faith, and know that change can still happen, and it's never too late.
Ooh, thank you. This has been definitely an awesome discussion that I'm going to keep my notepad and take my take-home stuff and just continue pouring and implementing my son. And I'm just so glad that I'm able to just get to know you and just see your 13-year-old daughter, and I have a 9-year-old son. I can look up to know that in a few years, like, we can be a team. And I, as a single mother and stuff like that, we're just pouring things into him. And so I really thank you for your words today, and I know they have touched many ears. And so we'll definitely be in touch and just assisting in any kind of way.
No problem.
So thank you again for being on the show. Well, I thank you, and I'll be in touch, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.
Mm-hmm.
So, Source Nation, if you were just tuning in, you were listening to Maya Cullins, and she had so many great tips to show us, or to tell us about. And some of the take-home, I just really just want to just reiterate were just about that communication and putting our technology devices down and having a moment just to get to know our teens. And it may feel abnormal, but it's necessary, and being transparent. And if anything feels like it's out of the scope of you seeking that counseling, finding those resources, educating yourself, and just humbling yourself. And so I really hope that you took home a lot. And as always, my role is to never attack, but to rather break this cycle and rebuild. And so I want to stop and thank our sponsors, and they are WGLRO.com, Scott Cares Foundation, Urban Grandstand Digital, Meet My Types Matchmaking, Blend to Blend Juice Bar Boutique, Renovations, and New Covenant Praise Worship Center. And I want to extend myself as well, and I can be reached on Twitter at Jaketra B. Website, www.b3mentalperformances.com, and email jabryant1913@gmail.com. And thank you for tuning in to Family Mix Mondays, and I'll see you next week.